Today, another conversation about the Channel migrants. Yesterday, we gave a little round of applause for Keir Starmer. Since he's been in office as Prime Minister, 10,000 migrants plus have now arrived on small dinghies. We saw, more than 1,000 arriving over the weekend alone. We've had a lot of smooth weather, smooth sailing over the summer months. We're now heading into the autumn. That may change, but we're on track pretty much to have the same number of people arriving as 2023, but on fewer boats because it's hard to get hold of those dinghies now with more overcrowded, and we've already seen a spate of deaths in recent weeks as a result of that overcrowding. The Border Force new security commander, he says, look, smashing the gangs alone isn't going to do it. So do you agree with him, and what else is needed?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Julia, I've seen your conversation there. Actually, they are arrested when they come off the boat. So they are taken under arrest by the Border Force to Manston. The problem really stems from that because Manston was never really built as a detention centre. There's very, very limited, although it's a huge estate, I've been there, there's very limited capabilities.
It's sort of a processing centre rather than anything else.
They're not just sort of let go from the boats. There is a process they go through, which takes up to about 24 hours. But essentially, after that, they're in the asylum process, and asylum process takes time. And then, therefore, we are under pressure to release them. Yeah. Whilst that goes on. So, I mean, I just wanted to clarify that point. But, I mean, I think, Martin Hewitt's right. I mean, that's what I've been saying all along, isn't it, Julia?
Yeah. Every week, mate, every week.
You can't just smash the gangs. You gotta send a message to the migrants.
They are simply a supplier. They're supplying the route for people to get over. What you need to do is deal with the demand. And also, there is so much money in people smuggling, and so many people willing to do it. If you arrested and put into jail every single person involved in it today, tomorrow a whole new bunch would arrive, wouldn't they?
Well, so, I mean, we do something. I mean, when they go to Manston, they are debriefed, right? Yeah. Thoroughly debriefed. Lots of checks are done. And so we know what messages they've been given because they tell us. And the message they've been given, and whether it's by the smugglers or by relatives here or by someone else, that all you really need to do is just hold your nerve. It'll be okay. You're going to get to stay here. And that goes back. And the next wave come and say, well, look, I arrived 2 years ago and I'm still here. And there are some countries that we can't send people back to. We know this, Julia. We've spoken about this. Places like Afghan, Iraq. We've got a high grant rate of about 60%. So unless you can send a message that's going to change the narrative to the migrant, well, yeah, we're going to come after the gangs here. That's great, but we have to remove people from the country.
How do we know where people are from when they turn up and say, oh, I'm from Afghanistan? I mean, again, 2015 with the Syrian civil war, basically everyone said they were from Syria. We know more than 1 million people claimed to be Syrian when they arrived in Germany, and apparently only about 40% of them actually were. How do we know? We're told that, more than 90% of these, normally, usually young men, they throw away, or they certainly don't have their papers when they arrive. So someone says, I'm from Afghanistan, or I'm from a country where I know it's going to be hard to send me back. How do we know that's where they're from?
Well, we don't know for sure, Julia, but we're not silly. We see lots and lots of people. We do lots and lots of interviews. We've got pretty good experts who can kind of work through what the likelihood is of you being of a certain country. So I don't want your listeners to get the impression that, we just let people. Yeah. I mean, we do challenge, and we challenge on all kinds of things. But it's really difficult. We challenge on age, and we want to talk about age. If someone's throwing their passport away, that's one of the reasons they do it. Well, I'm only 14. Well, no, you're not. Don't look it to me.
You've got a great beard for a 14-year-old and some wrinkles, yes.
Yeah, but when it comes to shove, Julia, we are operating in a set of guidelines here, which is the err on the side of caution, that you don't want to be putting kids in adult care in detention. But
we also would rather not have 26-year-olds sent to schools, which has happened.
I just want people to understand, Julia, the Border Force aren't useless. They're not. No. We've been doing this for a while. I mean, what we need to do is invest in detention. That's right. Actually, we can only hold people at Manston 5 days total. Yeah. And this is massive. Home Office have bought it. You could build a prison on Manston, and then that would be the first message. And then you could put courts in Manston, you could put caseworkers in Manston. People could go into Manston and be out on a plane within a couple of weeks. I used to do detain fast track, so I know that this can be done. And that's my message to the government, is what is your return strategy? Now, what they've said is, we're going to put more people on returns, but We know there are certain cohorts that they can't return, and that's why I keep saying Rwanda was a good idea, because that was a third. The French won't take them back, and you can't send them back to your own country. It's not rocket science, is it, Julia? Where are you going to send them to? We haven't got that option anymore.
No, that's the key thing. I mean, the issue with Rwanda was that, again, in principle, I have no issue with it, but you're only looking ever at a few hundred people, in which case that wasn't providing enough of a deterrent. You say we could do this fast-track detainment, but actually when we're told, oh, there are far too many people coming. But, of course, once you got that up and running, there wouldn't be so many people coming. You wouldn't have to deal with that. What are the big pull factors? What is it that Martin Hewitt's referring to? It's not just that, look, we're an easy target. You'll be able to stay here. You're not going to be sent back. Is it things like people being put up in a hotel rather than camping near a beach at Calais? Is it the English language? Is it that they know people here? What are the other pull factors?
Well, yeah, I mean, all of the above, Julia, you're bang on. I mean, it is the English language that is very, very huge, because it is the universal language now pretty well across the world. So I can speak English, so at least I can talk to people. We've got very diverse communities across the country now, so it's very likely that you know someone who knows someone who knows someone that's already here. And so there's a huge network, and the advice that is going back to would-be migrants is, look, why don't you come? Look, I did. It's okay, actually. It's not that bad. It is quite bad, actually, for some of them. But the message going back, it's not that bad. You will be ultimately allowed to stay. You will be able to. And this is what the myth is that's going to Vietnam. It's going to Turkey. It's going to all the country. Look, get to the promised land. The reality is, though, and this is where you guys can help in the media. They watch this. Get the message. It's not that great here, right? It's not that wonderful.
I mean, a lot of Brits are trying to leave. But again, if you look at the lives that people are living in many of these places, actually, a rotten life here is a damn sight better. Maybe the weather not so good, but life here is a lot better for them. What about ID cards? We are constantly told. I mean, Tony Blair's obsessed with the darn things. If we had ID cards, if we're told it's so much easier to get work here, particularly on the black market and everything, because, well, again, why would you need ID cards to work on the black market? You can get, because you're not required to show ID. Is that the answer?
No, not really. I mean, yeah, I'm a fan of that, Julia. You know I am. But actually, what you really want to do is get your guys out, get camera crews out with the enforcement guys that are raiding the car washes, raiding the... and see what's going on. They're sleeping in containers on the floor. They're earning about, I don't know, 5 or 6 quid an hour. They're in slave labor. This is not the promised land. But the problem we've got with enforcement is you can't remove them still. Because, there's some reason, I've got a human rights claim, I've got an asylum claim, and you've got to get your caseworkers on that. The arrest teams can't do removals. They have to be in tandem with the caseworkers. So there's a structural issue in the department. We did it back in the day in UKBA. I presided over the highest removals we've ever had. So that's why I'm going on about it, Julie. I'm right now. But
here's the thing. We stopped doing removals. Now, I'm constantly being told, it's because of Brexit. It wasn't because, by the way, that all happened during COVID lockdowns, but it was pretty hard for anyone to move around. So a lot of that's got caught up. But actually, the number of removals and the percentage of removals had plummeted under the Tories long before Brexit. Why was that? And what was the reason given?
Well, I think there were a number of things that happened. I retired in 2013, Julia, and
that was the problem.
It was not just down to me. Come on, it was. And what happened, if you look back the last 10 years, the detention estate's pretty well been halved. We had something called the Shaw Report.
So we had nowhere to put them.
We got nowhere to detain. Even now, they're thinking twice about going out now today, Julia, to do a job, because what's the point? If we can't arrest them, there's nowhere to put them. Prisons are full, detention state. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we split the department up into enforcement, into visas, into border force. There was lots of different reshuffles. And then along came Windrush, along came Brexit. I mean, the Home Office is a juggernaut, but it's learned from crisis to crisis, whoever's in charge of government. And now's an opportunity, really, to reset. But we've got to keep talking about this policy of deterrence. And I'm glad you do, Julie. It is the right message. How do we stop people getting across the channel? What is it? And smashing the gangs on its own, it's right. It's not going to do it on its own. So I'm glad he's told the Prime Minister that, because they need to hear it. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, just finally, the simple use of technology, drones, I don't understand. We saw Giorgia Meloni showing Keir Starmer in Italy how they use drone technology. I know some of it's being used in the channel, but I don't understand why drone technology can't be used on all, along the beaches. You can see where people are setting off. There you go. They're setting off there. A force is sent there immediately. They turn the boat back, drag them back to shore, make it really clear, you're simply not going to go anywhere. Is that really impossible to do?
Well, we are doing it already.
Well, clearly not enough, because, 1,200 people arrived at the weekend.
Yeah, but when I say we, I mean France.
Yeah.
Right. This is, we've been through this. The French will only allow the UK to do certain things over there. It's their territory. It's their beat. Now, they will take money and they will invest it in equipment, and they are tracking people, Julia. They are following people. But you know what their policy is. Once they're waterborne, that's it.
Not our problem anymore.
So they're on the water. Now, I challenge that policy. I wrote something in the Telegraph last week about this. Why is it okay to push people back to Tunisia and to Syria, failed states, backed by EU money? And here we are on another EU border, up here on their northwest border with us, where it's not. I mean, it's
total hypocrisy, isn't it? Tony Smith, it's just always such a pleasure to talk to you. Somebody who actually knows how to do these things. Former head of the UK Border Force, thank you so much for joining us. Benedict Spence, I mean, it's interesting. ID cards, who knew? Not the answer. But again, the pull that Britain has, again, was promised down. But if people didn't think life was so good here, and people are reality, we should tell them more about Ed Miliband.
About how bad things are getting. I mean, but it's interesting that Tony agrees with me. You need to arrest them, take them to a dedicated facility, not release them into the asylum system, into the immigration system, but fast-track them through a court.
Where they're working on off the books.
Manston is a former international freight airport. The facility is there, the will isn't there, actually, and this can be done, and it is being done in other countries around the world that have major issues around migration. Everybody knows the solution to this problem. Nobody wants to do it in this country.
Well, nobody in charge wants to do it because
that's the thing.
Human rights.
But again, as I said earlier, Nigel Farage, when asked the question, would you see mass deportations, he dodged the question because he knows that is the response, that this country is not able, I say this country, but wings of the media and political elite in this country are not prepared to have that conversation.
Because most of the political and media elite in this country, whatever party they are in, basically, fundamentally,
agree with this.
Get a few bottles of wine down them, or a few glasses of wine down them at a dinner party, think that actually we should live in a borderless world. Yeah. They actually do. They
will shriek fascist, and you have a dedicated facility. They will say internment camps.
They have no concept of what national identity and citizenship actually means, and that every single right that we have is not universal. There are no universal human rights. There are no human rights without nation states who guarantee those to their citizens. There is no such thing as a human right. Life is nasty, brutish, and short unless you have nation states to guarantee those. There's a fundamental lack of understanding in the liberal media and political elite about what these things are and why you have to fight for them again every generation and why I'm afraid you have to protect them within your own borders. Well, I would like there to be more of this around the world, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the freedoms that I have and people have in this country for those coming from abroad. But there we are. Benedict Spence, more from you coming up. Lots more coming up from you as well. We'll get to your texts, your calls, your messages up next on this and all the other topics we've been talking about. This is Talk, the home of common sense.